Every day there is a forgetting, and every moment there is the possibility of remembering. Remembering who you truly are, awakening to your body, to the inner world and experience of being alive. Here is where you find the beauty, the joy. Here is where you free your soma. Hello and welcome to the Free Your Soma podcast, stories of somatic awakening and how to live from the inside out. Today, I have a wonderful guest with me, Christina Gomes. She is a business coach who works with conscious creators. She works with mentors, healers, and guides to help them build their online businesses, to help them raise their prices to a frequency that aligns with them. And, I have a personal relationship with Christina because it was Christina's program that I first did last year when I decided to take my somatic work online and do it for real, do it big instead of the small time way that I had been doing it for the last years. So I'm really excited to be at this point in my process where here I am with a podcast interviewing the person who mentored me in the beginning of my I guess coming out as an entrepreneur, right? So welcome, Christina. Hi, would you like to introduce yourselves to our audience?
Yes. Wow. That was such a great introduction, like mirroring of what it's really about. Yeah, I'm Christina Gomes and I identify as an artist, as a singer-songwriter, as a traveler, all sorts of things. And I know we're going to talk about being a whole human today. And the hat that I wear most often that I really love to wear is this entrepreneur hat and mentor for other entrepreneurs. I love what you said about going big. And I might just change my whole Insta bio right now. I help people go big. Simple as that.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it was such a process for me to even, we were connected on Instagram for years because we met at a festival in the Arctic Circle. In the very top of like the world, we met at this festival and we were both working there. Well, kind of working. It was like a very wild, haphazard kind of environment. So, as best as we could, we were serving at the festival. And yeah, as yoga teachers. And we met there and just stayed connected through social media. And like, I was on and off social media and I would like bounce back in every once in a while. I'll be like, oh, wow, Christina seems to be up to some cool stuff. Like, oh, she's having some fun out there. Like she's learning how to use this social media thing. And then all of a sudden one day, your content is speaking to me. It's speaking to me as like a creative magical person who is not really living in their potential, who is kind of feeling like an undiscovered genius or like someone who has power to share and feels like impotent in the world of how to share it, of how to get my message across. And so it was like you were speaking to me and I was like, damn, like she's right. Like I do have something to say and I want to say it, and yeah, and so there was a whole process even after I what's the word, I enrolled. I sent like I filled out the whole form, the application to work with you, and then I got cold feet, and then you had to like walk me through weeks actually of conversing with me to get me to like basically do what I said I wanted to do. And I thank you so much for that now. But yeah, maybe you can say something about that, like, having me suddenly this person you met, because this probably happens all the time. Someone you met once upon a time steps into like your waiting room, basically, right? And that process in which you're helping them to overcome their anxieties and their fears and their insecurities about making this big step in their lives.
I love that you said that. It is one of my favorite stories because as I teach around sales and having a seamless sales process and making sales fun and having sales be a part of the service, when you say it like that, of like your gratitude and that actually, it's like, oh, okay, I can also sell in this way. That's what I teach. That's why it is a service, is when I'm mirroring and modeling a different way that it can be done of like, oh, okay, you don't want it right now. Well, then you don't get it. Then the prices go up. And it's like, of course, we want to be transparent if our prices are going up, if there's a limited time offer, and that's all out of love. But we actually get to focus on what we're actually hearing in sales conversations. And when I'm hearing, I can't afford it, or I have fear, I'm not hearing anything bad about me or that I'm doing something wrong or that's it. Like say sales isn't for me. I'm hearing, oh, how can I guide this person and help this person? And how can I make it not about me? And how can I see that, oh, this is very normal and help my people to normalize what's really going on? So I was so happy. I am happy to have several calls with people because I know that my investment in my program is a powerful investment. And so when we're stepping into our power, yeah, we have questions. And so I'm not the person here that's like, oh, you have questions? What, you want to know everything about the process? It's like, no, of course. And of course, your people want to know a little bit about your process and how you work. So when I help people to enroll their people, I'm really getting down to the nitty gritty of how we can have these conversations. And they're not much different than our coaching style or the desire to help people. So thank you for bringing that up. It was fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's now something I'm on the other end of, enrolling people in my program and talking to them about this decision that I can feel that in their soul they want to make, and there's things that are in the way, and knowing like that what I'm inviting them to do, while it is like a real life, like actual monetary investment, which by the way, I think is like a really great thing for people actually in the long run, because then they're committed to doing it. They put their money on the table and said like, this is something that I'm paying for and I'm going to get my money's worth. You know what I mean? But also
Yeah.
beyond that, that they are, that they have those worries and those anxieties and those fears, and some of it might be about money, but like at the end of the day, like what I'm offering them and what I'm inviting them into is a real life-changing transformation that is priceless, and helping them to make the decision that feels most resonant for them at this time, right? And I mean,
Mhm.
I've had that. I mean, I have one woman in my program right now who wanted to do it last round, but had some things that were in the way, and they were real life things that were in the way, but now she's in this round, so that balance of not pushing too hard that you like make people feel like, intruded upon, but like pushing just enough to make it really clear, like, you want this change, this transformation, this new way of like experiencing your life. And like, I want to help you with that, whether it's right now or 2 months from now. Like, I want to be that person for you to help you with this.
Oh, I love that. It's like, I know I say soulful sales, and kind of when I look at people's message and they just like put a sacred in front of everything, I'm like, eh. But like when I really think about why I call it soulful sales is because we get a chance to look at our own stuff.
Mm,
And anything that we can't meet in a sales conversation is simply because we haven't met it in ourselves first. So
yeah.
why people have a better time enrolling people into their programs after they come through my program. Yes, I teach them what they could possibly say, but more importantly, as I help them to see, where are they still objecting to their own power? Where are they still saying, I can't, or I can't afford this, I can't afford that. And it could actually be true. It could be actual truth, but like we're looking at the price of something, we're looking at the money in the bank account, and it doesn't match. And when I know that I'm capable of creating that investment, I'm capable of creating the life I really want to live, the investment somehow arrives in my vicinity each and every time. So we first get to be open to, why is the thing that we want more valuable than money in our
Mm,
own lives? And then we're easily able to express that in the sales conversations, because it's not about money. It's about, well, if like they want the priceless thing on the other side of the investment. And the investment is more about, now I'm spending my time here. Now I'm really doing the work. Now I'm invested. Investment is different than invested, because some people will invest and still won't like show up like they could. And that's okay. That's a learning as well. That's a lesson as well. And I find that when people put down the money, like you said, on the table, that they show up differently and they receive on a different level than when I was trying to teach things for cheap. My clients weren't receiving as powerfully. And it got me looking at the healing power of money and healing my own things around
Right.
money, because it wasn't as easy as, it wasn't easy for me and I couldn't figure it out. I was like, why does this person so just make money so readily? And people would say, okay, they were born with money. They've maybe
Yeah.
not had these things that you've had. And I'm like, but I'm determined to not other. Like, I'm determined to go, it's okay. I have had a different life circumstance, but how can I raise the bar on my own life?
Right. Well, and you've done a lot of work around this. I remember, like, when I first signed up for your conscious creative business school, you also had another program that was specifically about healing your relationship with money. And I remember listening to you talk about that process for you, because, how long ago was that now that you like first stepped into this space of, I recognize that the reason that I'm not like a, a wealthy person, right? And
Mm.
living on like, you were living in your car, you were living you were living with a backpack on, like, just no home, like practically like the fancy version of homeless, right? And
Mm. It was exactly
like you have a
that.
plane ticket, but you don't have like a bedroom. And how long ago was that you started this process of healing your relationship with money and healing your relationship with worth? Like what's worthy
Mm.
within you? Because I know you talk about that a lot.
Yeah, I love this question because it is a process. It's an ongoing process. And each and every time that I raise my price, the old thoughts and patterns and questions come back around. I just now have a process and a care and a loving awareness around those thoughts that I didn't have back then when I like to say, home free. I love that you said the fancy version of homeless, because it truly was a choice. And for many years, it was the necessary path, because it's not like before that, I wasn't making money. I was a psychotherapist for youth in foster care. And I made around $60,000 a year. And, after taxes and all of that, like, I still brought in enough to live paycheck to paycheck. So that's what I saw was like, even when I was making money, if I looked back at my timeline and I was living in Hawaii, which is pretty expensive. That's why I was probably a higher paid psychotherapist and was still living paycheck to paycheck in a house full of 5 other people. I had a car, but it wasn't the nicest car. But we get into this kind of patterning in society. And I just realized that might be something more. I hadn't been like in the spirituality world yet. I just started going to yoga as a place to like heal my body, not also my spirit. And so I was like, okay, the little bits of yoga that I was learning, I was like, I feel like there's something more. I'm just getting the tip of this, what life is really like. And so luckily, I'm hearing luckily, luckily, I was stuck. I was stuck because my job wasn't a bad job. It wasn't like I was doing bad upon the world or like, really like down and out or in rock bottom. I was just like casually low grade depression, drinking on the weekend with my friends, like just waiting for some military man to scoop me up and marry me. Like I lived near a military base. Like we were going bar hopping. And I was like, dang, like I'm in my mid 20s. Like it's got to change, no? And so I got a wake up call from the universe and I got attacked on the job. So I
Mm.
kind of had no choice. It wasn't like this thing that I like just were like, oh, I think I should heal my money things. I got like kicked out of my life. I got kicked out of my job. I couldn't go back to
Right.
work. Yeah. So I took some time off and I started studying myself and the science and holistic philosophy of yoga. And I said, I want to travel. I want to live my life. I want to be free. So I called it home free and I traveled for 6 years. And around the midpoint of that, I met you in the Arctic Circle. And I was doing pretty good for myself. I was working for myself, which felt amazing. That felt free. And tomorrow I'm hosting a lesson called Sovereign. I'm hosting a 4-day event called Sovereign, Savage, and Sold Out. And what I want to speak upon tomorrow and today is that being sovereign over my mind, that was cool. Being like free to roam, that was cool. But when I got sick, when I needed to make a choice, when I needed to fly to the next place, I wasn't free because I did not have financial freedom. I mean, I lived in a van, and so it's like that was my bedroom. But I was like, oh, it's home free, it's home free, it's home free, it's cute. And then it was not cute anymore when I had gallstones and I was sick and all the choices weren't possible for me to heal naturally. Like I was really felt pinned up against the wall because I didn't have as many choices. I couldn't even fly home. I didn't even have enough money to fly to my parents' house. And so it really like stood out that, okay, I had lived a life of freedom, but like I get to add financial freedom into this mix. And so I started on that path.
That's incredible. I
Right.
mean, I related so much to what you were saying in the beginning about having this job that's just kind of like, it's not bad. It's pretty good. You're generally doing something like that you can feel good about in the world, but you're sort of in this complacency. Because before I became a world traveler, because I was also doing something similar, having this kind of nomadic lifestyle, I worked for Barnes and Noble booksellers,
Mm,
right, which is like a cool job. And I worked in the
yeah.
children's department, and they were kind of like the upper management of the store, like the general, like what district manager or something was kind of eyeballing me because he thought I would be good to bring into like corporate and work in HR. And so there was
Mm,
this like potential, like kind of thing hanging over my head of like, oh, you're going to get promoted and to go into work for headquarters. And there was part of me that was like, oh yeah, I mean, I could do that. That would be like a pretty good career move if this was going to be my career. But like you, I was really not satisfied with that, like that being the end result of like my time. I had also discovered yoga and was really interested in pursuing that. And when I went to my yoga training, I met all these people who were traveling the world teaching yoga. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I don't want to work for HR for a corporation. I want to travel the world and have that freedom. And so I feel like in so many ways, like what you've just described mirrors my own experience and that limitation that you ran up against. It was like, I'm free, but,
mm,
and for you, it was a money thing. And I mean, for me, at some point, it's become a money thing too. Like I've realized that I had blockages there within myself, which is part of why, I listened to you and I joined your program. As like, she's right. I do have blockages about this, and it's personal work that needs to happen in me. For me, the limitation that happened while I was in that process traveling, and I met you kind of right in the middle of when all of this was going on, was the pain in my body. The pain in my
mm,
body, even though I was a yoga teacher and I was traveling the world and I was doing all this stuff, there was like a tension, and maybe you can relate to this, that like ongoing changing your environment, right? And stressing your
mm,
body has an impact on your nervous system, right? And I was
mhm,
living with my nervous system toned up in addition to like injuries and past traumas that were in my body that were making me feel not free. I was not
mm,
feeling free in my body because I was in pain every day that I woke up. And
mm.
that was actually the catalyst for me to go into somatic education, which is something I'd already known about, but I had not decided to go for it. I wanted yoga to be my thing. I wanted all these other things to be the thing, but the
Mm.
thing ended up being already there
Yeah.
and the thing that I really needed to get that freedom back in my body. So I love that you shared this, because these limitations that we come up against in life, they lead us into deeper healing. They lead us into our next level offering of what we're here to give to the world.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I just wrote down scared of healing because
Mhm.
this morning I had another realization and I shared it with a friend in a little voice note, having a little conversation because this friend is where I was a few years ago, where it was a realization of like, yeah, sure, I've left the system and like I feel free from that, and that's lovely. And now I can't do everything I want to do. I can't do everything I want to, and that brings pain in my mind and in my body. And actually, the pain in the body was these gallstones. And with gallstones, they say you got to go to surgery. Everything we researched, even my yoga teacher, I was living in an ashram in Thailand at the time, living with my yoga teacher, and even my yoga teacher was like, what did the doctor say?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, wow, I'm going to have emergency surgery in a foreign country. Um, this is serious, and I need to be able to have more choice than this. And I was living in the ashram. Yes, I was helping and volunteering, and it was lovely. And but it brought me back to that same place when I was working, was I was still working for her. I was still under her kind of rigid rules, and it was very yogic, and it was dogmatic yoga, and it was like, these are the principles of yoga and you can't veer around it. And me as a creative, I believe that this is why these little balls were created in my gallbladder, of like little stored up things that I never got to say, little stored up ideas that I knew were brilliant. Like you'd said, that genius, this undiscovered genius that I knew were brilliant, but I was just waiting for someone to discover me. I was waiting for someone to pluck me from the street and be like, wow, you can really sing. Here's an album deal. Or wow, you can really teach. Here's a school. And that was even what was happening, was I was being bred. I was being groomed, primed to teach yoga in her way. And there were so many things that I was resistant to, because my design is not to work for someone else. My design is to express freely and be fully expressed. So I realized quickly, slowly, that these balls, these gallstones, these stones stored in my gallbladder were from me not making choices for myself and not having the means to be able to make the choice. So I gathered as much money as I could, and I went and I moved to my mom's couch. Like, I'm at this point 30 something. Like, I'm no longer mid 20s when I left my first job. It's like free trial. Now I'm mid 30s and I'm living on my mom's couch. Like, and like I like made the best of it. I was like, hee. I'm like, this will be the story. This will be the story I tell someday. And like, look at me now, I'm telling it. But the point about the healing of the money was like, I don't want to make what we do sound like we're only doing it for the money. And it's like, we are, and we get to create things and work completely for ourselves. And be able to do that, we need to be fully resourced. So I switched from kind of like these low cost courses to this high value offer. But what took me so long, kind of bringing this full circle, was me actually being scared of freedom, the full freedom and time. Like, what if my nervous system was regulated? What if I was just chill and I had so much space like I do now? I have so much space in my calendar right now that like I get to actually do my self-development practices. And now when I don't do the morning walks, or I'm not taking care of myself, there's no one else to like be like, I grew up poor, like, there's no one to blame. And not that I blame myself anymore, but like I really get to face my patterns, face my shit, and go,
Hey.
well, there's support around. I know I've been here before. And I was scared of that, actually. So it kept me in this loop of not earning money, because if I was truly financially free and I did have all the space in my calendar, then I would have no choice but to empower myself and grow. And that can be scary.
Oh, totally. Yes. Facing your shit is not like an easy thing by any means, right? And it's easier to just like avoid it somehow, which is human to avoid hard things. But it's also human to be courageous and to really go for what's going to satisfy your soul in the end. And I can totally relate to that. I had an amazing coaching call from one of my guides where we looked at like if I'm holding on to this whole story of things that happened before and then all the emotions and the upset of those things that happened, like what is the purpose of like my getting stuck in the past and stuck in this little pattern? Like what does that really do for me? Well, it keeps me in what's familiar. It keeps me in what's safe, because who would I be if that story didn't trigger me? I would actually
Mhm.
be free to just step into now, into right now, and be the person who's not like attached to that noise. And who that person is who's not attached to that story or that noise of, who's to blame, right, for me being, not who I want to be at this moment or whatever, right?
Mhm.
It's it's unknown. I don't know who that person is. I don't know who that Amy is yet. And that alone is actually scary, just unknown, just not knowing how to go about being that person, how it is to show up as that person. And I feel you, like in this entrepreneurial process, like, in order to sell, I guess, myself as the product. I mean, we have our tools, we have our techniques, we have our methods, but at the end of the day, like I hired Christina Gomes because I hired you as a person, not just
Mhm.
because you had like a cool website, right? And so
Mhm.
for you or me to show up as our full authentic self so that people know what they're purchasing, so that people can want to work with us, that's scary, that requires showing up as yourself and not as some imagined perfect, you know, identity that you would like to be, right?
I love that. I wrote down deeply love yourself. And I was actually also speaking of fear and healing. It wasn't that I deeply loved myself, didn't love myself. Or, like people would be like, wow, you're one of the most confident people I've ever met. And what I was afraid of what that meant. Or like people are just gonna think I'm just arrogant. People are going to not be able to relate. People are going to say, well, she can because she's so confident. And it's like the confidence was built. And it's almost like whenever I say I love myself, I jokingly like whisper it like, yeah, like I really love myself. It's like not how dare we let the people know that how much we love ourselves when they're still working on it. And so that has been the process too. And this is why being mentored, being coached, being guided has been the greatest gift of my life, because how am I to hold space for someone who's on the edge of the deepest empowerment, self-love, fullest self-expression possible if I am hiding from my own self-expression, or I am, saying that I'm available to hold space. And it's okay, actually. Like I want to say everybody gets started, and like we can only bring people as deep as we are willing to go. So why I continue with my growth and development, I'm in self-development programs as well as business programs that infuse self-development within them. I don't think you can have a business program that's just like, I mean, I guess people try, but it's like you're always going to come up against a human as a human question about how it's making them feel. So like my business program is completely a self-development program. It's very holistic, and like their strategy, rituals, things that we get to run our creative energy through, and systems we get to create that we can hand off to someone else to run that part of the business, so that we can continue being the visionary, the self-expressed one. And when you're in that place, you must take yourself deeper if you actually want to be a great mentor, because people are going to come to you with a problem. And it's okay if you haven't heard of that problem, but exactly what I said in a sales conversation, you can only meet someone in the place that you've been willing to go. And if you're like, no, not touching that with a 10-foot pole, not touching my relationship attachment style, not touching this, not touching that, then when they come to you as the mentor or guide, they'll just be that kind of block, that rigidness. And it's also okay to say, I don't know that just yet. This isn't what I specialize in. Let me get you a referral, or let me get you this book to read, and let me help you as best I can. I do really believe in that. And that's why it's important to uh, immerse yourself in your own self-development if you want to be doing that for others.
Yeah, well, and what a powerful like process it is to get mentored from someone else. And because, you know, when I think back on the one-on-one sessions that we had together, you know, I faced a lot of self-doubt, but also just like general confusion. And
Mm,
you're sitting there on the other end, on the other side of confusion, kind of knowing what it takes to get this
mm,
thing really going. And that is kind of what you're speaking to right now, that you had gone through something similar to me, that I was in. I was in it, and you were on the other side of it going, I've been there, and let me reflect to you what I see, what I feel, right? So much of like what we do as guides and as coaches is reflect what the other person is experiencing so the other person can see themselves, right?
mm,
And you did that so beautifully for me. I still remember some of our conversations that were kind of like little light bulbs going off. And it was like, oh, it wasn't even like, oh, Christina's so great. Like, yes, Christina's great, but she mirrored myself to me.
mm,
And like, oh my God, like that was in me. Like I have this thing to share, and she's helping me to discover it so that it can take form, so that it can take flight. Right.
mm.
And so
Ooh,
that's something that, you know, as the work that I'm doing now as a somatic educator, it's quite different because we're working with movement, we're working with movement patterns. There's this kind of mechanical process that I'm taking people through. At the same time, just like you said, in any kind of like coaching or, you know, learning environment, people are going to have stuff come up, and that stuff comes up. And, you know, maybe 5, 6 years ago when I was doing this somatic work, you know, it would have been confronting or triggering for someone to have like a big emotional release, or to
mm,
talking about their relationships with their family members. And I'm like, dude, I'm just doing body work, like, you know. But
mm,
now, because
mm,
I've done so much work in those areas of my life and I see them as related to my somatic practice and the somatic work that I do with my body, it's like that stuff shows up and I'm like, yeah, I'm there with them. I'm here with
mm,
you. Like that is part of this process of unlocking the tension and the spaces in your body that have blockages. There's memories held there. There's
mm.
experiences. This is a full, you know, process of healing when we start going into things. And I mean, you can probably relate that even to just, you know, the way it shows up for you when you're on like a coaching call. It's showing up in your body, it's showing up in your mind, it's showing up in your emotions, it's showing up in all of you.
Mhm.
Whether we're working with like a, you know, working with kind of more just like talking, or whether we're working with moving, it's going to show up in all of you.
Ugh, yeah, what the light bulb moment that I had in hearing you speak is that a lot of people feel like their business is marketing and sales. And that if they could just get this marketing thing and learn how to sell, that their business will be fluid. And I deeply believe that your business is made in the delivery.
Mm, yeah.
And so, and then it becomes your marketing gets so much more simple because you get to play with different ways to show what it's like to work with you. And then it's a nice combination because, like what you said, is we are hiring people for who they are showing up as. And if you combine that with how you know that, like you said also, of we've been there before. So it's like, yes, it is about me. And sometimes people hire me because I have cats, or um like like I'm this way, or I've been through this, or I'm a traveler. So that, but they know that I'm going to be able to relate to them, and I'm going to be able to offer them something that's going to be more personalized to them, because business isn't just marketing and sales. Having a business based on holding space and helping people get transformation is about how we're able to deliver. And taking it back to what we're talking about before is like, we get to go deep within ourselves. We get to see is why is this client or this client challenge personally triggering for me, and not project that onto the client, but to receive our own mentorship. And this I learned in my years as a psychotherapist. So my program is not psychotherapy. I love having a lot more, hola. Oh, I'm working. Okay, can I talk to you in 20 minutes or 30 minutes? Because I'm actually on a call. Okay. In 20, 30 minutes, I'm on a live thing. People just walk up in my house. It don't matter if you're free or not, or how much money you have. I started making a lot of money to live in a nice place. The people just up in my house right now. Like, no, I am working. Anyway, I love my job. I just walked in my fucking house. Okay, coming back to grounding. So why that is particularly triggering for me is boundaries.
Yeah, yeah.
And me not being able to people not following them. Anyway, where were we? I don't know. You're welcome to edit this out or leave it. Like,
No,
I'm
yeah,
having a great time.
I think that like the point, the thing that came up here is like we don't know what's going to happen. Just like on this call, like you didn't know someone was going to walk up in the house. We don't know what's going to happen on and the thematic session, on the coaching call or whatever. Things happen, and yeah, we might get triggered. Like there have been moments where I'm like, oh, I can see that something that I said or did like triggered someone that I'm speaking with, and then now I'm getting triggered, and I have to catch myself and walk back, right, and come back to my center. So the idea is that it's not that like we, reach this level of like perfection and we don't get triggered anymore. Like, no, we do. And we just learn how to manage it in a more graceful way and come back to our baseline more quickly. And then, if we're still holding on to it after the call or after the time or whatever, we're resourced enough to have places to sort it out and really get down to like what the gold was in that moment. I mean, for me, I'd also get like kind of like have these like territorial moments or something in my own environment. And I think it actually stems from my childhood and not having my own space, having to share a room with my sibling, is like a perfect example of that. And then also from the years that I spent traveling where I was like constantly in accommodation to other people's environments. And that was like really exhausting too, right? To like always be in someone else's environment.
Right. And that's what we were talking about earlier about having to work for someone else, or now I'm in an ashram. And if I don't cover my shoulders right, I'm being scolded. And it was like, hey, listen, I'm a sexual being. I am a free, expressive human. I do not jive with really having too many rules. And so I run my program like that as well. And I loved what you said about catching being triggered, because there's different than when a boundary is actually violated. Like right now, I'm still like, yeah, like somebody's walking into my house. Like it doesn't matter if I live in an apartment. Like I know that we don't have the same rules in Guatemala as the wild, wild west as we do in the States, but like in the States, like people can't just, even policemen need a warrant, so like some like boundaries and kind of agreements and things, they're not necessarily bad. It's how we relate to them and how we really want. So in creating our own programs, we get to actually I come from a real place of freedom and empowering my people to recognize that they can do whatever they want. And this is probably the biggest coaching that I give again and again and again, is like, I can guide you. I can even give you a strategy plan. We can co-create a strategy plan, but I want you to know you don't have to do it like me. Like you can do this however you want. Be exactly who you are. And we're not going to do it perfectly on a coaching call. There will be things that trigger us or things we haven't met. And some people are so afraid of meeting a question that they can't answer, or that they don't know how to answer in the moment, or blanking out, that they become paralyzed to putting themselves out in their marketing. Because who will they be if they start marketing and people actually want their program? And then oh my goodness, if they don't have an answer. And you can see it just happened for me. I'm like, what was I talking about? Who am I? Where am I? Like, like I will do that on a coaching call, and people find it entertaining, and it gives them so much permission, because I know it's going to come back. And if it doesn't come back, it's fine. Or if it comes back later, I might message the people later and be like, here was the end of that uh, story. And it all doesn't matter really. In a long form, high value container, we're building on things. There's going to be a nugget of wisdom for someone, even in this talk that you said, that I said, that changes the trajectory of their life. And that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for these, for me, at least, this huge emotional release every time. If it happens, it happens. And some of the most phenomenal shifts for my clients happened in the subtleties and in the
Right.
times where they took what I said, integrated and applied it in their own life, not on the call.
Right. Yeah, in that stillness, that space in
Mm.
between interaction, in between the peak experience or something like that. I've been thinking about that a lot in terms of we, especially when I was younger, and maybe, other people can relate to this, I would focus on these peak experiences as being like the most transformative thing. Like that's why I was so into like really intense yoga and stuff, is I wanted to have this like burst of chemicals experience because I believed that was what
Mm.
changed things. But what you're just now speaking to is really a more developed like perspective, which is that it's actually in our little daily habits and the way that we apply things in subtle ways that make the most long lasting changes over time. Like I could have some intense emotional like release in a coaching call with somebody, but then basically almost feel like re-traumatized and have to like
Mm.
do a whole ton of like self-care for days and days afterwards. And maybe that would shift, my belief systems. Maybe that would make some changes. It could. But there's also another way that's less traumatic, that's less intense, that could make a huge, huge change in how I see myself or how I'm functioning just by making one small adjustment to how I'm doing something or the way I'm thinking about it while I'm doing something.
I love that. And it sounds like the way that you describe Hannah somatics is small,
Oh yeah.
small things. I was just thinking also of like, this is a pretty recent discovery of mine. Like even 2.5 years ago, I was still taking large amounts of psychedelics or like going to a shaman. And I'm like, it's no matter what I say, it's still coming from this place of like, what is wrong with me? Suck it out of me.
Yes.
It's like,
Out.
yeah, just get it out. And like you said, I have had like peak. I mean, I smoked the most powerful psychedelic known to man, 5-MeO DMT, and it took me months to recover from that experience, and it was fine. Like I'm capable of anything, and a lot of times we go into something with the best intentions of healing, and the true healing comes from the small,
Mhm.
subtle adjustments. And the only kind of thing for those of you out there that are creating programs or guiding people in the subtle realms is then our work is about reminding the people where they came. Because I will get someone at the end of my program, and they're like, where's my $1 million a month? Or where's my 6-figure year? And I'm like, we didn't even working together for a year. And it's still like, it's coming from what's wrong with me, suck it out of me. And it's okay. Like we've all been there. It's not even our thing. It's like a collective thing. And yeah,
Right.
it's our thing too. Like we have our own traumas, and it's a collective thing that we actually have come here as a collective to remember and awaken out of. That, oh wow, there's there might not be anything wrong with me.
Right.
And I can just
Well,
grow and learn and play.
when you were speaking and talking about this, I was really, it really does connect to the work that I do with Hannah Somatics, because we do these tiny, small movements and we make huge structural changes in how somebody's brain and body are connecting. Right. And I thought of this image of like, imagine that you have like a puzzle that's like 2,000 pieces, like one of those really like intense puzzles. Right. Um, if you just dump the puzzle out and then you like slam your hands on it really hard, is the puzzle going to go together?
I hope so. Just
Well,
kidding.
is it going to take some time to
You can
carefully,
pray.
yeah, maybe if you have like, magic wizard powers and you can just wave your hands and the 2000 piece puzzle just like slams together, right? Or it could take time to put those pieces together, and it would take some delicate work, and it would happen piece by piece over the course of, maybe if you're really adept at it, it would take an afternoon, or maybe it would take 3 days, or maybe it would take 2 weeks, depending on
Mm,
how much time you're putting into piecing that fragmentation together. So when we're talking about putting back together ourselves from some kind of traumatic life experiences and injuries and health issues and the whole complexity of our human vessel, and we're putting that back together, like it's not a process that's going to happen by slamming your hands down on the puzzle. You know what I mean? Like, we want that to be the case. Wouldn't that be cool? And maybe there's that feeling like when something's really coming together, like when we have those moments where everything's coming together, it's like you're reaching the end of that puzzle, and like, oh, and this piece goes here and this piece goes there, and suddenly it feels like you just slammed your hands and now you see the whole picture,
mhm,
right? But that didn't happen from the moment you dumped the puzzle out to start it. That was the end result of a longer process, right? Which is what you're speaking
mm,
to with your clients who are working their way towards full independent wealth. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. For me, like, I did last year like really quite well financially compared to where I was the previous year.
mm.
Like, I did phenomenal. Like, and yet I still had these voices in my head that was like, well, I want to make more money than that, right? But
Yeah.
it's because I have this fear that I
Mm,
have to make more money now, because
mm,
not going to have money, right? It comes
mm,
from that fearful place, instead of just like, okay, this is great, let me celebrate, right? And the pieces are going to come together as they come together. It's going to take the time that it takes as I'm going through my process, and I'm
mm,
working my way towards this bigger picture, right?
mm. Oh, I love what you were saying. I love that picture so much. It'll stay with me. That image is so phenomenal because it 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 only works like that. The whole of it. It only works like that. And a lot of people come to me after they've been in self-development programs masquerading as business programs. I like to have strategy. I like to have a pathway. I like to have roadmaps and different actual things that I've done to create the content, create the processes, create the structure. And I often say to people, like, we cannot just pray our businesses into existence, just like we can't pray that puzzle creates itself. And that was like, whew, because you can pray. Like, that's the thing, is like, if you're praying and singing and playing as you put the puzzle together, you're gonna have a lot more fun. But
Mm.
you still get to sit in front of it and put the puzzle piece together, however long it takes. And depend on it'll depend on a few things. Like, if we're keeping with the puzzle picture, it's like, it will depend on a few things. And a lot of people will come to me kind of comparing themselves to Amy, because you've had great success and you left a lovely testimonial, and I plastered your face all over my website. Thank you so much. And they like, I want, where's my success like that? Where is my financial freedom? Where is my financial success? And I get to remind them, like, actually, Amy sat in front of the puzzle. You came to every call with a personalized question, and there wasn't a lot of resistance. There was doubt or confusion that you brought. And that's what I'm tell people, is like, if you're confused or you're doubting, I can only also guide people based on what they reveal. And so, yes, my role is to help people to understand how it works. You reveal, you ask, and then I have a more potent response. Otherwise, if people want kind of like they just want like the map, like, say you're at the puzzle and there is a map to the puzzle. It's like, without somebody there that maybe has seen this puzzle, seen the picture before, then it'll just go a little slower. So And there's this thing called divine timing. Like sometimes something's happening where like their time is being diverted. Now, time is a commodity that really is tangible. Like we can say time is an illusion, but also you only have 24 hours in a day. So that paradox exists. And some of my moms to young children, they got babysitters or they woke up early. And that's why I loved working with you and working with the moms that I work with, because they don't have all the space in the world. So it's like, I'm not going to sit here and I got 20 minutes to do this puzzle. I got an hour to do this puzzle before I'm picking Babe up from the nursery, wherever Babe goes. Or maybe for you, Babe was right there doing the puzzle with you. And it's like, how do we play? How do we play through this so that Babe can join too and maybe help? That piece goes there. I don't know how Baby's going to build your business, but a lot of my clients, like they're breastfeeding right now. Or maybe, yeah, two of my clients are breastfeeding right now. They come to the calls with the babies on their breast, and they come to their calls. I get so much permission to like, this is a part of life. This is part of life. And I can teach, coach, guide with baby on my breast. So this is a part of my life. It's so freeing.
Yeah, it's great that you bring up that picture on the puzzle box, because I thought about the picture on the puzzle box too, right? And that's kind of what you get in those peak moments sometimes, right? Is you get that like boom, I see the whole picture. But then if you then suddenly you're back, maybe after your, psychedelic trip or after your spiritually like transcended experience, and you're like, oh, but how do I put this puzzle together? Like I'm back here in this state of fragmentation, and like I saw the bigger picture, but like how do I do that? And how we do that is by like living our lives, right? And living our lives with that puzzle, like in our consciousness, that picture of what we are really looking for, what's really possible for us. And yeah, like being a mom and thinking about what I really want to be possible for my life, for my son, for the way that I want us to live, like I have to keep that, like, I think you call it the why, right? Your why. Why am I doing this work? And it can be personal and it can be transpersonal. It can be like, I'm doing this work because I want to help heal the world. I want there to be more, like, you, maybe for you, and you can say whether this is accurate, you want there to be more like conscious creative people who are living in their power, who are making money, so that there's people in the world with money who are doing beautiful, powerful, healing things, and not just people in the world with money who are exploiting the world, right? But who are making money and doing wonderful, powerful things. That's part of like what you're creating for people, right? And I'm creating people who can move in their bodies and live to be 75 and not have the level of tension and pain in their bodies that's connected to their previous life experiences that ends up shackling them as they get older, that they can be liberated and free in their bodies to be doing the work that they're meant to do here, and helping other people through their radiance, through what they're creating in their bodies every day. So what do you think? It sounds like a good team here.
Something I know I like to do typing. I'm like typing things that are coming through, and what you're saying sparks so much goodness in me, because you like astrology. I have a lot in the first house. So I was always like bummed when I felt like my why was more selfish than other people's. And I'm like thinking, but they must have some kind of personal reason why too. And I loved having like seeing a personal and a transpersonal reason. And sometimes you're in the thick of it, you're going to need both, and whatever works for you. Sometimes when I'm feeling rather like grumpy or like disillusioned by the world, I got to lean more into my personal intention of what, like, my personal intention. And even if it's something like, oh, I want to send my kid to college, or I want to give my kid, I mean, I don't have kids, so maybe I'm talking about my cats. It was in the beginning when I was broke, I was like, but like when I was broke, I'm like, I just want to buy my babies wet food, and like they got to go to the vet, and I actually need to be able to provide for them. And yeah, sure, at the time it was coming from a sense of urgency. I don't like to continue from a place of urgency, but sometimes we need some kind of spark. And so I've been saying lately, like, it's actually okay to do it for the money. And it's okay to not have this perfect altruistic plan of what we want to do with our money. That might come. And mine actually came later. And and it's still a little bit selfish. This is my transpersonal reason why. Is
Yeah.
like, I want more empowered friends that are wealthy enough to go on self-development trips with me. It's still, I know, like for the ripple effect, it does great on the world. Like when more people are empowered and they're just like teaching when I hear my clients talk about their clients and like calling them in, calling the perfect soul aligned client in, and that they're going to help them in all these different ways. I do know that there's going to be better people out in the world, that we are now collectively living a bigger mission of like raising the collective consciousness, like ushering in the new paradigm earth, like a earth that's more collaborative, a earth that's more aligned with nature and with the earth, and does things that serve nature and the earth and beauty and kindness and healing and wholeness, like all of that. Yes. And I sort of just want to like go to the jungle of Costa Rica with my friends, and not many of my friends can afford it. And I'm like,
Right.
hey, here's how you can like 3 sessions. We can go, like, just offer 3 of your sessions and we can go to Costa Rica. So it's both, and it gets to be both, and it's all okay.
Yeah, I mean, my big motivator, for me, I wanted to live in the woods. I wanted to live outside a dense city where I was living when I first started your program. And then within a month of starting your program, I had manifested the like perfect living environment for me to actually deliver the first round of my program in, which now I live in the woods, like my neighbors are trees. And my son gets to be growing up in a more natural environment without all this pollution and, busy, commerce all around him. And that was very, personal. That was like a reason. And there was urgency behind it. I was so sick of living where I had been living, and I wanted more, peace and more freedom around me. And so, yeah, like beyond wanting to help people, I also wanted to help myself. Well, here's the thing. When I'm living in this environment where there's trees around and calm, fresh air, and it's a 15-minute walk down to a beautiful lake, like my nervous system is in a state where I am more capable of delivering on the promise of my program. Not that I couldn't do it in any environment. I'm sure that I'm a badass and I could do it, but it would take more out of me because I wouldn't have as much to fill up with, if that makes sense. In this way that I'm living now, and this is what you're pointing to as well around the self-care and the personal work that you do as a coach, you fill your cup so that you can give, so that you can deliver on the promise of your program without burnout, without like tons of hiccups on your end, so that you can show up in the best possible way for the people who hire you.
Mm, yeah, thanks for saying that. I just wrote a piece yesterday, and if you notice anybody who's like come to listen to me because I'm amazing at writing content and I like share a message like every day, like how it's gotten to be that way is, yeah, owning my voice in that process, owning that the power of the work I do, but also leaving space for me to process personal things without letting it affect um my job. This is actually a job still, and it's like, if I want to, it's not a job kind of job, but it's like a mission. And it's like, if I want to show up the best version of me, and it doesn't mean perfect, they will catch me at times where my nervous system is dysregulated. I offered an entire round where I was personally going through something. And so I really want to kind of like express this, that there are ways to ensure that you're showing up for them in just that 90 minutes, in just that 2 hours, in just that creation of that video, even if you're going through something, because that is meaningful. So me having my own space was like, oh, I was going through something personal, and then I was able to get guided or listen to my calming meditation. And also, it is possible, if this is your soul's mission, if this is the thing, is like I'll just kind of say what happens to me, because this might not happen for everyone. And I don't want to like kind of be like, oh, you need to be a channel or a psychic or like this perfect, like blank slate. It's not really possible, but it becomes more efficient to like deal with your own things. But as soon as that camera turns on, I wouldn't say, the piece I wrote was like, yeah, my ego is kind of not there. Like it is. I laugh like Christina. I joke like Christina. I have all the same stories, but I don't have the same pain. Like
Mm.
my pain body can chill on the side. And when if I want, after even this conversation, go pick it right back up. And today was one of those days, like I got into just a little bit of a spat with one of my friends. It's a very close friend. And I want to handle these things as a conscious adult. And it also triggers things from my past. And so I will find myself in the morning, it wakes up, and then it's on the tip of your mind and it's on the tip of your tongue. And it's like, okay, this is just a moment in time where I get to come back to myself, focus on myself, because I have a beautiful interview. But I know, and if you do this enough times, that having these kind of calls, having my sessions gives me at least respite for those 90 minutes where I'm running that healing energy through my body, where my ego, yes, it's here. Yes, I'm me. I have a personality. I'm funny. I just got mad at the human that walked in my house. What if I was naked? What if this was a naked call? Like now I have to go speak to him about it. Like that came up for me. And it's like, okay, we're here now. We're doing something else. We're actually living our soul's purpose now. That's what this time is for. I'm welcome to be a bumbling, imperfect, like angsty, full of full of whatever emotions after the session.
Yeah, I can relate. I mean, that space is what I loved about teaching yoga, because
Mm,
I'm doing that, I was doing that before, and now I feel like I'm doing it on a different level where you come into it and you are more in your embodied highest self, and the
mm,
pain body, all the other noise kind of quiets down for a while. It goes into the background and you can pick it up later. Thanks for that. But,
yeah, choices.
yeah. I mean, but what? Sometimes we pick it up later. We pick up the pain or the sadness or the anger or whatever was on our plate before we stepped into the healing zone inside ourselves, to facilitate that for others. And we pick it back up with just that little bit of space, that little bit of like calm, that little
Mm,
bit of healing energy that we cultivated during that time. And it makes it so that pain is maybe a little more manageable, or that
mm,
situation is a little less um, desperate, or whatever, because
mm,
we've had that respite, as you said, we've had that space, and we've experienced the power of presence, being
mm,
fully present for other people. I mean, that's really like the whole ethos at the end of the day with yoga is about service, right? Like what fulfills human beings is yes, our own personal goals and our own like personal needs, like that's part of it, but this feeling of like real satisfaction comes from service. That's one of the tenets behind a lot of ashrams, etc. is that, and that's part of what we're talking about here, is that we show up for other people, and in doing that we actually show up for ourselves.
mm. Yeah. And I love what you were saying too. Like, okay, I could pick it up. It's so funny because I just like loved that when people would say that in the yoga space. And I adopted that very quickly because it made me feel as the receiver of like, I do have choice. Actually, I can be an angsty, I can be a troublemaker. Like I do have choice. And when I have full choice, it's like, I know I may just choose something much more calm. And that this sense of urgency is very real for people. And I still get it sometimes as well. And when we realize nothing needs to happen right in this moment, if we actually look around and we say, like you said, to get to that, you got to the safe place, you got to the woods, and it, for a moment you weren't there, and you got to build your business. And same, I got to build my business, create consistent revenue, get out of the van, even upgrade each year my living conditions to accommodate this space that I need to grow. If we're growing and we're expanding, like oftentimes our physical space is a part of that. And yet we get to accept where we are now, and we can release that sense of urgency without anything in the outside world changing. And I know that that's probably like talking to a somatics facilitator about that, but for everybody out there, of like, that's what it feels like for me. That's my own kind of way to describe how I'm really doing this, how I'm really making 5-figure months and doing it with ease. And not every month is a 5-figure month, but if I then start to work from a sense of urgency because it's only been a 5K month instead of a 10K month, then I recognize, oh, this doesn't really serve. So how can I serve my inner world first so that I can let the outside circumstance start to reflect that? And that happens also in the container. The post I was writing was about this. Like, it is my job. It is almost my only job to regulate my nervous system before a call, because they are going to sense it. And it doesn't mean we have to be perfect. It doesn't mean we have to get this right, but that we're doing our best. And sometimes I'll be transparent. Like if something, I was on a call with someone else and somebody transparently said this of like, yeah, my kid just like broke something, did this thing. And he was like, I just want to take this moment to ground together because I'm in it too. And I was like, oh, right. It's like, here, this is the moment. Let's all get into the same space together. You did that before our call as well. It's like, oh, this is where yoga is really great. Even when I'm a business coach now, it's like, it's all yoga. It's all presence. And there's different layers of it. And I can always go back to my old patterns, but most likely I'll choose not to.
Well, yeah. And I mean, sometimes it's like the old patterns just show up and then you get to deal with it in a new way. I did this recently on a coaching call that I had with my group program. I arrived to the call and we were doing a check-in and I was like, me first, because I
Yeah.
need to tell you guys what's been happening, that I went through a lot of stress over the month of December for a whole bunch of different reasons. My dad was having some major health issues, ended up in the
Mm,
hospital on Christmas Eve. There was a lot going
mm,
on. And the response that my body had to it was that my quadricep muscles just like squeezed really hard and didn't let go. And I was somatically releasing them and then the stress would come back. And so I had to I had to change how I was practicing my somatics. Like basically I was frustrated. I was like, I turned my quads off and now they're back on again, and I was like, well, how would I work with my client if this was happening for my
mm,
client? What approach would I take to help them release the stress that's showing up in like their quadricep muscles? And so I ended up like telling the people in my group, like, hey, like I've been having pain in my legs for the last like 3 weeks. And this is how I've been working with it, and it's been frustrating. And I've felt, this feeling, this pressure to be perfect, to be this, somatic educator who doesn't have any pain in her body. So I can be like marketing that. But that's not like the real truth of it. The real truth is that pain still comes up and that I, as a somatic educator, am empowered to deal with it. But I can't just deal with it like it's maintenance. That's kind of what I realized. I was like, right now, I've been through a lot of stress. This is not just maintenance time.
mm,
This is like, therapy time. This is like, how do I like treat my leg issue in like the best possible way time versus
mm.
just what I practice as maintenance for my everyday experience. And it's
Wow.
amazing because, you can probably think about this in terms of the other personal practices that you do. There's maintenance, and then there's like go time. There's like next leveling up time. And those are different times. So coming from this like, leg pain that I was having, and, thankfully, like it did diminish when I started treating it like I needed therapy with it versus just maintenance. Um, I have just decided to keep my somatic practice at a really high level right now because I
Mm,
was like, no, this is go time. I'm going to be launching the next round of my program soon. I have this incredible group of people. Like I am going to step it up a notch. And so again, that catastrophe, that pain, that trigger of my thighs squeezing and the stress, it actually brought me to a next level in my personal healing process. That's what those things have the potential to do, right?
I love it. And you're modeling, like what I'm realizing now and taking into all of my programs is I'm not certifying anyone as a coach. And how I have actually became a really great guide and coach isn't just from going to psychotherapy school and remembering the things that I learned from a book. It was being modeled to me every time I received, and being modeled to me what not striving for perfection looks like. And I was just hearing like, there are seasons in our health, there's seasons in the world, and there's seasons in our business. And some people come to me and they thought it was going to be go time. And then something happens in their personal life, and I get the opportunity to support them and remind them that this is the season that they're in and that they deserve support through any season. And
Mm.
maintenance is often the hardest part. It's like, okay, you can have a huge launch, but can you repeat that? And a lot of people that haven't gone through my program, that don't have a process for launching or don't have a process for uh, where and when they want to show up and what they actually want to say, that really leads to filled up programs, is they might get great success, but they don't like understand how their business runs. And
Mm.
so I want to ensure that everybody that comes to see me, that they understand how their business runs so that they can repeat that success if they want to. And, or maintain it. Like we don't have to be growing all the time, actually.
That's true. And that's, I mean, very similar to what people get in my program is they learn the maintenance piece because like you said, that actually can be the hardest part. That's
Mhm.
just for me where I'm speaking in my process is that I'm at this point become
Right.
very good at maintaining my somatic practice.
Mhm.
That's where I'm really good. And so I have to be reminded by my body that there's also like therapeutic time that's more than just maintenance, right? That's like for leveling me up to the next experience or dealing with a specific issue that comes up. Because, you know, people can come and have a session with me and get tremendous relief in their pain, restructure in that, hour, the way their body's moving and have, weeks, days or weeks or months of feeling better than they did before our session. Like I've had miracle clients like that were having neck pain for like
Mm,
years,
mm,
do 2 sessions with me and their neck pain is gone and it doesn't come
mm,
back. That happens sometimes. At the same time, that person is not necessarily learning this as a skill, right? The
mm,
skill of somatically releasing their body, the skill of launching their program, right? They're
mhm.
not building that as a skill if they just have one session with me, if they just come to one of your master classes or listen to some of your content. It's from that training to become adept at how to do this and to be able to maintain a practice of doing it, whether it's the
Mm.
practice of writing content, the practice of going live and putting your face out there on the internet,
Yeah.
the practice of tuning in to where the tension is in your body and then knowing how to release it, how to let it go.
I wrote, we're humans who are practicing these principles as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the deepest healing. When we're talking about healing through entrepreneurship, that's what it is. Like now I have people who I am modeling for who do look up to me, and not only look up to me, have paid me for a quality service. And so it does become my job to continue to practice these principles. And that level of devotion has been the most healing thing for me. And you just get to find your thing, because I actually stopped practicing yoga. There's so many things that I've stopped doing. There's so many things that continue to be a stop and start pattern to me. And I just have got to admit that they were not that important to me. They were not a priority to me. What was important to me is this mission, is helping people to be financially free so that we don't have to live in societal constructs that don't serve our wholeness or our spirit, or our like critical thinking, our expansion. And even if we're in a season of maintenance and sustaining, I love helping people with sustainable
Mhm.
businesses that make consistent revenue over time. And you won't be able to do that by blowing your hamstrings out or like, like just like let's effing go mode is totally a mode, but they're able to do that. My clients are able to do that because they do it in a pressure free way. It's not
Mhm.
like let's effing go or I'll die. Like let's effing go. This is my only chance. It's like let's effing go. Let's do this fun. I finally know how to do this in a fun way. It's finally working. Like I'm doing things that are actually working in a way that is in alignment with my health and my values. And so let's F and go. Like there's nothing stopping them at that point. It's very beautiful to witness.
And you can be going without like breakneck speed. You can be going at like a reasonable pace and
I'm
enjoying
skipping.
the sights and sounds along the way and still be going.
Yeah, I don't run anymore either. I walk. I
Yeah.
walk for fitness. That's the only thing I do for fitness, for like actual getting my booty lifted. Like I like walking because I like looking
This
at things.
is the best human exercise, in my opinion, because it's low impact, it's low stress on your system, it gets your circulation going, it's a cross body activity. I could tell you all these really juicy, wonderful things about why walking is primary, for sure.
I'm a
Yes.
walker.
So before we close out our talk today, I would love for you to share with us a story of your transformation process, like anything that comes to your mind about, where you were. I mean, we touched on that a little bit, and you can think about like, maybe it's something that happened recently, maybe it's something that happened 10 years ago that brings you to this point now in becoming the person who's sitting here able to share your voice so freely, able to share who you are, and able to guide others so masterfully.
Yeah, I believe I will share something recent because what I find and what I've taught on in the past is that you must embody something before you can teach it. And that it's wise and refinement if you wait to like understand really what this either concept is or like yeah, this maybe topic that you're understanding or even learning about. Like there is some refinement that gets to happen before it's really solidified. And I teach on this, and I've talked about kind of the transition I made from living on my mom's couch to putting my first offer together, long form offer. I definitely made all the mistakes of charging too low and like having like 17 sales calls or like 3-hour sales calls for like a very cheap program. But I made those mistakes with like happiness because I was finally doing something that like meant something to me. And I think I made only like I don't know, less than $1,000 with like 9 people. So don't like look at the price, like, because it was a really a high quality, high value, even highly produced program. And the mistake in that was like not valuing, not valuing. And yet, what I want to say about that is I had been teaching around that transition from a space of like, hey, don't make the mistake that I made because like you can start high value. And that message has really helped a lot of people. But I don't want to get it twisted. Like, I don't want anyone to get it twisted. I was happy that I was finally making progress, that I was finally taking those steps. And what I want to talk about now is that like I'm revisiting that moment of like doing it for pure happiness, doing it for pure fulfillment. And I'm watching my own message change from create 10K consistent months because, what can you do with all that glorious money? And that's amazing. I think we can do great things. And after building my business and growing and going in so many different directions, it always comes back to fulfillment. And you actually can build your business from the beginning with a high value offer that is fulfilling to deliver. Because I can tell you back then, like I was fulfilled because I was doing things, but I wasn't fulfilled by my clients because they weren't showing up to the calls because they were like, this is $100, this is $100 course. Like, why are you acting like it's a coaching program? It was really showing up like this coaching program, having all these live calls, like I'm your coach forever. And like, if I hadn't made those mistakes personally, I could have never been a business coach. Like I love my job. I love being a business coach. I love talking about entrepreneurship and the different ways that you can do this. And I wouldn't have been a business coach. I was working on creative enhancement back then. And I probably would have stayed in that had I just, we don't know how the life pans out, but it was like those mistakes even that were fulfilling. And so looking for your own fulfillment, what are the ways that you actually want to show up? Are you actually truly fulfilled by being a floating head on a screen and not getting that feedback from working with clients? And if you do want that feedback from working with clients and you want to be a part of somebody's life deeply and fully, where they have access to you and your brain and your stories and they get to talk to you live, do you really want to charge $100? Is $97 really the price of that? And so really looking at what is going to be fulfilling and about the model, about what you're receiving, and about like where this can possibly go, because it might be fulfilling to just try something. And I'm welcoming that rather than being like, you must, no, I never tell anybody what they must charge, but I'm really proud of the people who charge right off the bat a great price like you did. Like you didn't waste any time. And I got to remind people that as well, of like, why did she create a great revenue month? Is she wasn't charging $1,000. She wasn't charging just $1,000 for her potent, powerful work in the world. It was more than that. And as the results show, it's worth more than that. So that's a little bit like to kind of land this spaceship is fulfillment first, and don't expect what fulfills me to fulfill you. And we get to go on that discovery process together and refine that together and grow together. And it gives me permission to grow. I may change my mind next month, and it's so permission filled. I am going to start having a course that people can go through without live access to me, because I have changed my mind about what is high value to people, and both can be high value to people. They could be at the level that they want my brain and wisdom and presence, or they could be at the level that they want to try something else on their own. So we get to grow together and trust yourself in where you're at. And if you don't want a mentor, then maybe your mentor has a course. No, I'm back full circle with that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, fulfillment first. You had me thinking about how I was in, and I think we tend to think of things as like binary, like I'm either fulfilled or I'm not fulfilled, or I'm happy or I'm not happy. But it's really more like on a spectrum, and it's really more dynamic than that. And so you can be fulfilled to, let's say, if we're looking at like, the 100% model, we're fulfilled 45%. And that's actually great, because whatever I was doing before, I was only fulfilled 30%. So I just went 15% up in my fulfillment level. That's great.
Good.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling jazzy. Wait, like there's actually more that needs to happen for me to feel more of that fulfillment, raising my price to something that actually attracts the people that I really want to work with. Right. Oh, now my fulfillment has gone up 75. Right. Wow. This is great. I'm reaching a new level of the joy and the capacity for like fulfillment that I can experience in my body. Right. And then we get to kind of push the edge and push the lid on that and discover what the next space is as we become more aware of like what is not working, when we come across those challenges, when we break through to those next layers of like what's possible. Right. So yeah, I think it's cool. And I love how, you have always shared in such a way that it feels like everybody's free to change their mind, including you.
Mm. Right,
Like you
right.
say things that are like really like wow, okay, great. But you also have this humor, you have this way of like kind of challenging even yourself as you're saying it to be like, but or this could be different. We could decide that something else works. Like you have that freedom in your expression where it doesn't feel like things are fixed. And I think that's really powerful for people because, a lot of us when we're in it, we want the answer, the answer. We want there to be one answer. We want like binary,
Mm,
right, wrong, good and bad. This is works, this doesn't work. And that's actually not how reality works.
mm,
And so
mm,
I appreciate that about you. I appreciate when you talk about how you used to think this and then you changed your mind, and that there's the possibility you could change your mind again. And,
mm,
to me, that just feels transparent. That feels fun. That feels like it reminds me that I'm not like fixed as a person, that I am constantly in a state of developing and becoming and discovering. So thank
mm.
you for that. Thank you for that voice of like kind of playfulness.
Ah, yeah, choice is liberating. It's the true sovereignty of like, it was so much fun to just try it out. I just wanted to try something out, and it led me to being a six-figure earner as a business coach, like, and rising. And if I would have never just said, I'm going to try this and full freedom, if it doesn't work, that's the thing, is there's truly no real sense of urgency. Like I could play with that in my mind forever and always, but it's like there's always somebody there to help. There's always somebody that has got your back if you have your own back. Like uh, we're safe. We truly are safe. If you look around, no matter your circumstances, unless you're not safe, but probably people who aren't safe aren't like going to the going to the podcast like, hey, let's talk about expansion. There, where there's levels and varying degrees of safety, but what we're talking about in our own expansion and rise is that we are actually safe, and from that level of safety within the body, we can create wild amounts of things that weren't possible when we were searching for safety, not recognizing it. Oh, it's in me. It's in my nervous system. It's in my thoughts. It's in my words. It's in my deepest breath.
It's in your
And
it's in your
spine.
uh,
It's in my soma. It's in my soma. I believe it. Oh, thank you. As a triple Libra, choice is liberating. And it's also the paradox of that is that our world is full of too many choices. And so what I like to say is they're like searching for the answer, that it's okay to be seeking. That's a yogi, like we seek. And like it sometimes isn't about like who exactly, like the mentor has to be this perfect person that's gotten all this results that you want. And in my choice to just go like, I'm going to work with someone, that one's good, great. Like, and making powerful choices for myself has been the thing that empowered me to know that I always have my own back.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the help that I've received from coaches and mentors and guides over the last year has been huge. Like you're one of many people who have supported me. Some of the people that supported me, like I paid them, like I paid you, or other people supported me for trade. Like they had some skill and they were interested in my somatic work and I did a trade. This is the kind of stuff that happens that you start building in the beginning to get yourself going, to figure out like where your next step is on this entrepreneurship mission. You get creative, you figure it out as you go. That's what's so exciting and kind of scary about it, right?
Right. Well, I don't know how this is going to pan out, but yeah, it's like a false sense of safety to get a paycheck every week if your soul isn't satisfied. And it's like, sure, it's a little bit more mysterious, and we don't know how much money we're going to make or how many clients we're going to call in. And we do know that we can give it our full presence. And that's what it is for me. That's what I teach my clients. It's like you can you can get distracted in whatever you want. It's fine. Like maybe it's not a distraction. Maybe it's guiding you to the perfect exact place. And we just do get to build, we got to build something before we can grow it. And a lot of people just want the consistent 6-figure years, just like to poof from banging their hands on the table. And I actually show you like some options so that it will come. Like it's
Yeah.
here for me now, but not because I didn't go through the same thing that everyone gets to go to, of just like trying things out, being curious, playing, failing. Also, it does, sometimes it doesn't work. And that's entrepreneurship, is being curious about what works for you and your nervous system and your audience, and being willing to try something and seeing it not work. And a lot of people, like if something doesn't work right away, they get pretty bratty with the universe. And
Right.
I mean, I'm self-proclaimed brat, but I'm willing to move from that archetype to the queen archetype, which is like, I'm here to try and here to play and here to do my best though through that. It's like, I'm not playing like, I mean, I don't like to dig in the dirt that much. Like I'm keeping it clean over here.
Well, and what happens when people get suddenly like overnight success? Look at the child actors who were catapulted into fame at like 7 years old. How'd that really work out for most of them? How does it really work out when you suddenly have hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you don't have the, skills of how to handle your money or how to emotionally handle your money? You
Mm,
know, like what really happens when we get that? If, I do a somatic session with someone and they have all this pain and then every single pain goes away and it's gone, that person didn't really learn how
mm,
to to deal with the pain. They just got this instant result, and then they're out there doing their same activities that caused the injury, that caused the
mm,
pain. They're out blowing their hundreds of thousands of dollars, not spending it wisely because they didn't have the capacity to hold that frequency. If we're talking about it as energetic, the
mm,
frequency of a pain-free body, or the frequency of like, a wealthy bank account, they didn't have the skills to really handle that. And so
mm,
what I'm offering people is actually like the way to be able to build your your revenue over time, to build your capacity to experience joy and pleasure in your body over time, not that boom, instantaneous, instant gratification that everybody thinks they want. But
mm.
it it's not, sometimes it's you get what you want and it's like that's actually didn't work out so well.
Right. And everything's a lesson. Like I'm performing magic now, and I'm like, my magic teacher says, like, actually don't be careful what you wish for, because you're gonna see like you're actually gonna see what you are capable of and what you can hold and handle and sit with, and that'll be fun. But like, yeah, some people would say we are that powerful. Like if we wish for something and take steps, like we are going to get it. So we might want to be supported and have someone to ask questions to, and like have
Right,
someone on
right.
our side to be like, no, this is normal. Yeah. Sometimes when you get what you want, it's a bit too much.
Right, right. It can be very like messy or, yeah, I mean, think about it. Just like any change in our perception and paradigm can shake things up a lot. And so
Mm,
having that help, having that resource is so powerful and so important. So thank you for the work that you did with me. Like it was
mm,
really profound. It really helped me be, you know, creating the life that I want to live. So thank you. I
mm,
loved having you on the podcast today to get to share like just some of what you do and some about you with our listeners so that they can kind of get a window into the possibilities that come with this concept of healing through entrepreneurship, of
mm.
actually doing the internal work that it takes to create the dreams and the visions that we have for our lives.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun. I always enjoy our conversations, especially at this level. I loved being your coach, and I really, really love being your sister and collaborator and co-creator. It's so, so fun.
Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely check in with you, maybe have you on the podcast again later as this develops, as in maybe on the second season of my podcast as I grow this as a consistent practice in my offering and my sharing of, my methods and also the methods of other really powerful, folks out there like you. So thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
You've been listening to the Free Your Soma podcast. Subscribe now to hear more stories of somatic awakening and gain knowledge and tools for somatic living. If you'd like to learn more about me, Amy Takaya, Hannah Somatic Education, or the Radiance Program, please visit www.freeyoursoma.com.